They saw you fall and assumed you wouldn't rise, but what they didn't understand, what they could never understand, is that you were never built to break, you were built to transform. They expected you to drown in the chaos, but you learned how to breathe underwater. They expected you to cry in the dark, but you learned how to see in the dark. They expected you to collapse under the weight of rejection, but rejection became your training ground. Every closed door, a lesson, every betrayal, a sharpening stone, every insult, fuel. Did they really think you would stay the same after everything you survived? They doubted your worth because they only saw the surface. They saw the rough draft, not the masterpiece in progress. They saw the storm, not the strength it was building inside you. And you were quietly becoming something unstoppable. There were nights when the silence was loud, when doubt crept into your chest like cold air under a door. You questioned yourself. You replayed their words in your mind. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not good enough. You stood in front of the mirror and searched for evidence of greatness, and only saw scars. But those scars, they weren't proof of weakness. They were proof of survival. You endured what was meant to destroy you. You stood up when no one clapped. You kept moving when no one noticed. You fought battles no one knew you were fighting. And that's where it began. Not with applause, not with validation, but with a decision. A quiet, almost invisible decision. You decided that their opinion would no longer define your potential. That was the first spark, small but powerful, like the first flicker of fire in a dark forest. And you fed it. You fed it with discipline when motivation ran dry. You fed it with consistency when emotions tried to sabotage you. You fed it with belief when proof was nowhere to be found. You started showing up for yourself, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was lonely, even when it felt pointless. And slowly, the version of you they underestimated began to fade. In its place, something stronger emerged. You stopped chasing approval. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped shrinking. You began to understand something dangerous. Their doubt had nothing to do with your ability. It had everything to do with their fear. Because when someone sees potential they don't possess, it threatens them. When someone sees courage they don't have, it exposes them. And you were a mirror they didn't want to look into. So they labeled you, they minimized you, they laughed at you. But every time they underestimated you, they gave you an advantage. Because while they were busy judging you, you were building, you were studying, you were practicing, you were refining your craft in silence, like a sword being sharpened in the dark. And then came the moment they didn't expect, the moment your preparation met opportunity. Suddenly, you weren't the unlikely one anymore. You were the one they had to talk about. You were the one they couldn't ignore. And you could see it in their eyes. Confusion, shock, a quiet panic, because the person they dismissed was now standing tall. Did they really think you would stay broken? Did they really believe that their rejection would be the final chapter of your story? They underestimated your resilience. They mistook your silence for surrender, but your silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. You were observing, learning, preparing. And when you stepped forward again, you didn't look the same. Your energy shifted. You walked differently, spoke differently, moved with intention. There was no more desperation in your voice, no more hunger for approval in your eyes. You no longer needed them to clap. You had clapped for yourself in the dark. That's the difference. They need an audience to feel powerful. You built your power in isolation, and that isolation, it became your sanctuary. While they were comfortable, you were uncomfortable on purpose. While they were sleeping, you were evolving. While they were doubting, you were designing your comeback. And now they see it. The growth, the confidence, the calm strength that doesn't need to shout. They see the glow up, the results, the presence, and it unsettles them because they thought they knew your limits. They thought they had you figured out. But you broke the pattern. You broke the narrative they created for you. You rewrote the script. And that's when the power shift truly happened. You stopped reacting to their opinions. You stopped defending yourself. You started living in alignment with your own standards. And peace became your revenge, not bitterness, not arrogance. Peace, the kind of peace that comes from knowing you no longer need validation. The kind of peace that radiates from someone who has survived their own darkness. You stopped trying to prove them wrong and focused on proving yourself right. That's when you became dangerous, because a person who doesn't need external approval cannot be controlled. A person who knows their worth cannot be manipulated. A person who has faced their fears and walked through fire cannot be intimidated. And you walked through fire. You felt the heat of rejection, the burn of betrayal, the sting of being overlooked. But instead of turning to ash, you became the flame. They expected you to crumble under pressure, but pressure created diamonds. They expected you to disappear, but you became undeniable. Every setback turned into strength. Every insult turned into intensity. Every tear turned into clarity. And now, when they look at you, they don't see the person they doubted. They see the person they misjudged. They see someone who commands respect without demanding it, someone who moves with purpose, someone who knows exactly who they are. You don't chase, you attract. You don't beg, you build. You don't argue, you ascend. And the most powerful part, you're not doing this out of revenge. You're doing it out of self-respect. You realize that your worth was never up for debate. It was never dependent on their recognition. It was never tied to their approval. Your worth was intrinsic, unshakable, undeniable. They doubted your worth because they couldn't measure it, because it didn't fit into their limited understanding. But you stopped trying to fit. You started expanding. And expansion scares people who are committed to staying small. So let them talk. Let them watch. Let them wonder how you became so composed, so focused, so fearless. They didn't see the nights you cried and kept going. They didn't see the mornings you woke up exhausted but showed up anyway. They didn't see the internal battles you fought and won, but you did. You remember. You remember every moment you chose growth over comfort, every moment you chose discipline over excuses, every moment you chose belief over fear. And that's why this victory feels different. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's grounded, solid, unshakable. You no longer need to prove anything because you've already proven it to the only person who matters, yourself. You've outgrown the version of you that needed their approval. You've stepped into a new identity, an identity built on resilience, on self-awareness, on quiet confidence. And here's the truth they'll never admit. They doubted you because they saw something in you they didn't see in themselves. Potential, courage, vision. You had the audacity to believe in something bigger, and that threatened them. But now your success speaks. Your energy speaks. Your presence speaks. You don't need to argue with your results. You don't need to convince anyone of your value. Your life is the evidence. And the most beautiful part of this transformation, you forgave them, not because they deserved it, but because you deserved peace. You released the resentment. You let go of the need to be understood. You chose freedom because holding on to anger would have kept you tied to a past version of yourself. And you are no longer that person. You are someone who walks into rooms with calm authority, someone who trusts their intuition, someone who knows that setbacks are setups, someone who understands that doubt from others is often a reflection of their own insecurities. They doubted your worth, but you discovered it. They questioned your potential, but you unlocked it. They underestimated your strength, but you amplified it. And now you stand here, not bitter, not broken, but reborn, like a phoenix rising from ashes they thought would bury you.